blows my mind that full pay transparency is not a requirement for using independent contractors in the gig economy. As an independent contractor, how are you supposed to have control over your work, control over what gigs, what jobs, what orders, what offers you take, you accept, or you decline if you don't even know what the payout is going to be? I was taking a minute to think about this today and to think about how many hundreds, how many thousands of development hours that these delivery apps are putting into just finding ways to kind of disguise what the pay is, to gamify pay in order to get drivers and delivery drivers to accept orders that they normally would not accept, that may not even be profitable for them, that definitely are not worth their time to deliver. So what I'm asking for, what I'm calling for in this video is simple. It's complete and full pay transparency. If during an order a customer tips before that order is placed, that full tip amount should be shown to the delivery driver before that offer is accepted. Now, there's certain apps where customers can also tip after the order has completed. Obviously, in those scenarios, you cannot have transparency about a tip that has not occurred yet. But if a tip has already occurred, it needs to be shown to the driver. It's really just that simple. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many other ways with add-on orders that are hard to remove, with add-on orders in certain apps where you can't really see the exact drop-off location of that additional order. Maybe you get the distance, but you don't see it on a map. It could be completely out of the way for you in a neighborhood that you do not want to end up in. There's just all of these little things that aren't quite transparent about orders, and they need to be. A few months ago, really not that long ago, just about every delivery app had this full pay transparency, and it was a great time for delivery drivers. This was early on in the pandemic, and besides the fact that you are delivering during a pandemic, you're really putting yourself on the front line. There is some inherent danger then, but if you ignore that fact and you look at just how many orders were coming through, how much customers were tipping, the full pay transparency on these apps, it was a good time to be delivering. And coincidentally, this was also around the same time that Prop 22 was proposed. Essentially, gig economy companies were going at bat with regulators in California about AB5, which would have classified gig economy workers as full-time employees. Now, I've talked to a lot of gig economy workers on this channel, surveyed them about whether they wanted to be independent contractors, full-time employees, and basically what I've deducted is that regulators failed us, they failed the gig economy by not taking the time to actually understand and diagnose the gig economy and come up with a unique and creative solution that fits, that is tailored precisely to the gig economy to help independent contractors while keeping them independent contractors. And I think this is what independent contractors need. They were scared of being a full-time employee. A lot of independent contractors have been full-time employees in the past, hadn't had a good experience with that. They see other, gigs, other full-time jobs out there that they'd rather not be in. They'd rather not have, that stiff schedule. And there was pushback from certain people in the gig economy saying that, full-time employment doesn't necessarily mean you lose flexibility. I'm not going to get too deep into that. I tend to think that if gig economy apps had to treat gig workers as full-time employees, if they were on the app for a certain amount of time, they would have to schedule them. They'd have to monitor how many people were on the app at certain times and what location they were delivering in, because that would be the only way to get close to the same level of efficiency that these current gig economy apps deliver. That's my opinion. It's not the only opinion, and I'm always open to hearing other opinions, but that was what I saw as the major flaw. And I really just blame a lot of this on lazy regulators and, throwing out the AB5 bill and saying full-time employment. Essentially, they were taking an employment solution that had been used in the past and trying to fit it into this new innovative mold of the gig economy. And it's so new, it's so innovative, and the style of work is so appreciated by gig workers. In a lot of ways it is good for that reason, but it's also exploited at the same time. And so what regulators should have done is they should have come up with a better solution. They should have come up with a more tailored solution. And the the cornerstone, the first thing that needs to be changed and guaranteed is full transparency of pay. Because there's no way, in my mind, there's no imaginable way that you can call someone an independent contractor without them knowing what they're working for, how much they're going to get paid up front, and what this really boils down to. Think about it. If you were a painter and you were asking, you were putting a bid out there for painting someone's house, you would essentially take a little bit of time. You would see how big the house is, how much the paint would cost, how much time you think it's going to take you, and then you would give them a dollar bid. They could accept that or to decline it, but once that bid was placed out there and they accepted it, that's the amount that you're working for. So all of this up front. And unfortunately, the gig economy, in a lot of ways hides this. Not all of the apps do it, but some of them are doing it, and I think it definitely needs to stop. And in a lot of ways, this lack of transparency out there is what has led to movements like the Decline Now movements. Independent contractors who are savvy, who are being picky about the offers that they're taking, are earning a lot more, and apps don't know how to maintain profitability. They don't know how to get the lowest possible price for the customers and keep more customers happy without kind of manipulating independent contractors. And there needs to be a better way to do this, even if it's not in the best interest of these gig economy companies. So what should you do if you're in the gig economy and you're in a position where you're seeing these low orders and you're just not getting enough high offers coming in to make this worth your time? There are some alternatives out there. A lot of people say, working with multiple apps is good. I totally recommend that. There's also programs out there meant to help you. PPP loans, there's another wave of those coming through, available to sole proprietors. That means, anyone that's working as an independent contractor can essentially say, that they've had a business interruption, something COVID related. And because of the landscape of COVID, it's really anything economically related to COVID, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you caught COVID or that your mom or your sister or your girlfriend or your wife caught COVID. It could just be from the economic landscape created by COVID. And there's a lot at play here with, how the economy has impacted the gig economy during the pandemic. So I think that there's potentially a very valid offer. You could definitely say that you need a PPP loan as an independent contractor. And this essentially would give you a few months of payment of the same pay that you were receiving previously, but you'd just be getting those as a loan that you do not have to pay back. So that's one very good option. And why am I bringing this up? Because that, in a sense, gives gig economy workers leverage, right? Like if your pay is no longer what it was and you don't know what to do, you feel like you're trapped, you can't decline offers for whatever reason, you can't stand up and fight for yourself, then there are these other options. And if enough people take them, all of a sudden it starts to put a lot of pressure on these gig economy companies. So let me know what your thoughts are on this video. Leave a comment down below. Let me know, is full pay transparency absolutely required for gig economy workers? I think it is, and from what I've heard from my subscribers, I think a lot of them agree with that. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.